Hi everyone. Uh, this is a presentation on the type species Ascidia, and this is the second presentation. So far, we have completed the digestive system and respiratory system in Ascidians along with the morphological characters. And in this presentation, we are going to deal with the circulatory system, the components of the circulatory system, and the cause of circulation. So the circulatory system, in Urochordates, it is open circulatory system we can find. So Ascidians possess an open circulatory system as against a closed circulatory system as is found in the higher chordates. So what is the difference between open circulatory system and closed circulatory system? In open circulatory system, the blood flows through open sinuses and lacunae. But in closed circulatory system, the blood flows through closed vessels, which we call as blood vessels, like arteries, veins, and capillaries. Right now, the Ascidians also possess vessels through which blood is flowing, but those blood vessels are not the ones similar to the what is found in higher chordates. So the major difference being in the case of higher chordates, the blood vessels do have an inner lining formed of endothelium, right? But in the case of open circulatory system, this endothelium lined blood vessels are completely absent. Instead, they have sinuses and lacunae. Okay. Now, what are the components of circulatory system? The major components of the circulatory system of Ascidians include blood, pericardium and heart, and a system of sinuses and lacunae. Okay. Now, regarding the blood, blood is slightly reddish in color and almost transparent, and this do possess several pigmented corpuscles and colorless and amoeboid leukocytes suspended in the blood plasma. Right. Um, Now, why pericardium has been specifically mentioned over here, which we rarely mention it when we are discussing about the circulatory system in other higher chordates. The reason is, in the case of higher chordates, including humans, the pericardium is just a thin-walled protective covering around the heart, right? Uh, but in the case of Ascidians or in the case of Urochordates, pericardium is very significant in the sense heart is formed from the pericardium. Okay, pericardium is thick walled, it is non-contractile tube and it is closed at both ends. It's almost like a what you call cylinder, okay, tube-like structure which is closed at both the ends. And this, the lumen inside, the space inside, it is filled with pericardial fluid. Okay, I hope it is clear, right? Now, heart acid, it is formed from pericardium. How it is formed? It is formed by the invagination of pericardium. Okay, in pushing the pericardial wall, it pushes inside, and a small what you call a vesicle is formed inside, and this vesicle it enlarges and forms a heart. So it is actually in continuation with the pericardial wall. So actually what we see is the heart is inside the pericardium. It is in continuation with the wall of the pericardium. And all around the heart, you can see the pericardial fluid. And since it is formed from the pericardium, the heart wall is thick wall. It is non-chambered. The heart is non-chambered. You may remember the heart in the case of humans, which you have already studied in class 12. It was four-chambered, that is two auricles and two ventricles, isn't it? But in the case of Ascidia, it is non-chambered. It is just tubular, just like the pericardium. It is tubular. Okay, the shape of the heart is almost similar to pericardium, and they are non-valvular. What is non-valvular? You remember what is valve? Okay, between auricle ventricle of both the sides, you can see auriculo. This ventricular septum was there. Remember, right? And this auriculoventricular septum did have a valve, which permitted the flow of blood only in one direction, that is from auricle to ventricle. Similarly, the blood vessels which arose from the ventricle also possessed valves at the entry point, and there these valves open only in one direction, and it allowed the blood flow only in one direction from ventricle into the vessels. So usually the heart do have valves, and which actually keeps up the direction of the blood flow or maintains the direction of the blood flow. But here what happens is heart is just like it is non-chambered, it doesn't have any valve as well. Okay, and hence what happens is the blood in the yeah, in the heart, it actually you can see there is a periodic reversal. It moves through this heart structure. In There is a periodic reversal of the blood flow. Okay, periodically the blood flow direction it gets reversed. Fine. And another thing is like you can see when there is blood flow towards one direction, it is oxygenated blood which is flowing, and when the direction of the blood flow is reversed, you can see it is actually deoxygenated blood, deoxygenated blood which flows. So, in the same the heart do have completely oxygenated blood flowing in one at a time, and at other times it do have the deoxygenated or the impure blood flowing. So that is unique about the heart of the Ascidia. So here we can see the how the heart is formed by the invagination of the pericardial wall. In the first figure, you can see there is just a small inpushing into the lumen of the pericardium, where it is filled with pericardial fluid. Okay, so actually, in the first figure, you can see the what you call just 1 minute. Okay, yeah. Okay, so in the first figure, you can see this is the pericardial wall, the outer wall, and there is an inpushing which has been marked as invagination, right? So the region inside the pericardium, it is actually what is known as a pericardial cavity. It is filled with pericardial fluid. And it is into this the invagination is being pushed inside. Invagination is forming. Okay, it is increasing size. And in the second figure, you can see the vesicle has increased in size. And in the third figure, almost a like large non-chambered structure, a vesicle is completely formed. And that is what forms the heart in the case of Ascidian. So this is actually the development of heart from the pericardium in the by way of pericardial invagination, right? So this figure shows the heart and the pericardium when it is cut open. Okay, how the heart is attached to the pericardium. You can see there is a connective tissue flap. Actually, it is from there that inpushing is initiated. Okay, the uh, from the pericardial wall, the inpushing starts or begins at that particular point, and is pushed inside all along the length of the tubular pericardium. And then slowly and slowly, what happens is once the heart is completely formed, the wall it forms a merged connective tissue flap. Okay, and the space between the heart wall and the pericardial wall, it is filled with pericardial fluid, and that space is actually the pericardial cavity. Okay, I hope that attachment, the structure of the heart, and the structure of pericardium around is very This figure shows the blood vascular system of an Ascidia. You can see the heart, the position. The heart is located below the pharyngeal region, close to the stomach. And anteriorly, അതായത് അതിൻ്റെ what you call മൗത്ത് ഓപ്പണിംഗ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഓറൽ അപ്പേർച്ചർ അതിൻ്റെ നേർക്ക് ആ ഭാഗത്തേക്കായിട്ട് ഹാർട്ട് ഗീവ്സ് ഓഫ് ബ്രാങ്കിയോ കാർഡിയാക് വെസൽ. Okay, it is brachiocardiac, it is not tracheo. Okay, tracheo, it does have a different meaning. It is brachiocardiac vessel. Okay, it is BRANCHIO. Brachiocardiac vessel, it is given off towards the anterior end. And simultaneously, another vessel originates from the posterior part of the heart, and that is known as cardiovisceral vessel. I hope the names are clear. Brachiocardiac and cardiovisceral. Okay. Brachiocardiac vessel is otherwise known as ventral aorta. Why it is known as ventral aorta? Because actually the heart is located towards the ventral side. Okay, you can see the branchial sac of the pharynx. The mid-ventrally, it is attached to the mantle or the body wall. You remember when we studied morphology of the Ascidia, we saw that mid-ventrally the branchial sac is attached to the body wall, while laterally and dorsally it is free. And it all around, along the lateral and the dorsal side, the branchial sac is surrounded by the atrium or the atrial cavity. Okay, so this brachiocardiac vessel, it passes along the ventral side of the branchial sac, and hence it is otherwise known as ventral aorta. While cardiovisceral vessel, it is known as dorsal aorta. Okay, so heart is a fusiform structure, almost tubular structure, okay, fusiform shaped, situated below the pharynx, closer to the what you call ventral body wall. And anteriorly from the heart, you can see a brachiocardiac vessel or ventral aorta originating, while from the posterior side end of the heart originates the cardiovisceral vessel, or otherwise known as dorsal aorta. Okay, now the brachiocardiac vessel, it moves or runs forward or runs towards the anterior end below the endostyle, closer to the endostyle. You can see in the figure there is endostyle marked very close to the brachiocardiac vessel, isn't it? Now it passes along the below the endostyle. Okay, just below the what you call the branchial sac, closer to the endostyle it passes. And while it is running below the endostyle, it gives off numerous paired branches from it to the transverse branchial bars. And these vessels are known as transverse branchial vessels. Okay, we'll see what is transverse branchial bar and what is longitudinal branchial bar. Okay, here you can see actually here the vessels are marked, but it is a position you can see very clearly. I'll just show. Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, here. I hope you can see what is written on the top, that is longitudinal vessel, isn't it? So all along vertically, if you see, that is the this is actually the branchial sac. Okay, the wall of the branchial sac, the wall of the pharynx, and all those oval shapes which are drawn over here, they are the stigmata or the pharyngeal gill slits. Okay, and between the adjacent gill slits, the space between the adjacent gill slits in a row, it is actually the what you call the longitudinal the branchial bar. Okay, while the between the rows, the part of the wall, it is known as the transverse longitudinal bar. So the blood vessel which passes through that, it is known as the transverse vessel. Okay, while the vessel which passes through the longitudinal branchial bar, it is known as the longitudinal vessel. I hope it is clear. Okay, right. So we will see the rest. So what happens is brachiocardiac vessel, it runs closer to the branchial sac mid-ventrally below the endostyle, and while it is passing below the endostyle, it gives off branches along the transverse branchial bars. Okay, now it is clear, right? And these vessels are known as transverse branchial vessels. Fine. Now, um, while these transverse branchial vessels, it runs along the transverse branchial bars of the branchial sac. It gives us small branches. You can see there are small branches of the what do you call, the transverse branchial vessel, isn't it? Each of them giving off three or four smaller branches, and these branches are actually innervating longitudinal branchial bars. Clear? Okay. Now, so this flow chart shows the course of blood circulation in Ascidia. And the course of blood circulation in Ascidians, it is very unique in the sense blood never flows around a constant path. Instead, there is always a periodic reversal in the direction of the blood flow. And this periodic reversal depends mainly on the direction of the contraction of the heart. Okay, and very uniquely, heart can contract in both the directions. So when heart contracts from anterior towards the posterior, the blood flows in that direction. That is, blood flows from the heart towards the cardiovisceral vessel. Is it clear? When the heart contracts from anterior to posterior, that is from before backwards. Before backwards, so the blood flows from the heart to the cardiovisceral vessel, and simultaneously there is blood flow from brachiocardiac vessel to the heart. I hope it is clear. That is, the blood flow is actually when the heart it contracts from anterior towards the posterior end, or from uh, before backwards. The flow is marked in the red arrows. Okay, now it is clear. Okay, but when the heart contracts from um, in the opposite direction, that is from behind forwards, or from posterior to anterior end, what happens is the blood flows from the heart to the brachiocardiac vessel, and when it happens the same at the same time, the blood flows from cardio visceral vessel to the heart. Okay, so all the flow is in this direction is indicated in blue arrows. Clear? Okay, so we'll see into in detail. um, when the heart contracts from behind forwards, that is from posterior to anterior, the cardiovisceral vessel empties impure blood, or what we call as a deoxygenated blood, into the heart. Why is it so? Because the blood flows from the visceral organs where it is already used up. Okay, from visceral organs, from alimentary canal and all, as a result of which the blood which flows into the cardiovisceral vessel, it is of deoxygenated type, and this deoxygenated blood is reaches the heart from the cardiovisceral vessel. Okay, and this blood soon flows into brachiocardiac vessel. Okay, so the blood flow is indicated by the blue arrow. So I hope you can follow it. Okay, so it passes into the brachiocardiac vessel, and you remember the brachiocardiac vessel, it runs mid-ventrally closer to the endostyle, and while it is moving anteriorly, it gives off branches into the transverse branchial bars, and these vessels are known as transverse branchial vessels. So these the blood which has reached the brachiocardiac vessel, it is pumped through the transverse branchial vessels. Okay, and these transverse branchial vessels, it takes up oxygen. So after the branchial this brachiocardiac vessel also supplies mantle and the test to integumentary vessels. I hope remember. So two set of vessels arises from the brachiocardiac vessels. They are transverse branchial vessels and integumentary vessels. And these two at these two sites, actually the blood is getting oxygenated. And after oxygenation, the blood passes to the brachiovisceral vessel. You remember the brachiovisceral vessel, which passes from the which passes along the mid-dorsal line. It passes in through the branches of the what you call brachiovisceral vessel, and reaches the brachiovisceral vessel, and then it reaches the lacuna system, and from there the blood flows back into the cardiovisceral vessel, and from there to the heart. So that is in one cycle. When the blood flows from the heart contracts from behind forwards. This is the cycle. Okay, and all those are indicated in blue arrows. Okay, fine. So that is the direction. Now, what happens when the heart contracts the reverse way? When the heart contracts from before backwards, the heart gets filled with oxygenated blood received from brachiocardiac vessel, and this blood flows to the cardiovisceral vessel. So now what happens is the heart do have oxygenated blood passing through that, unlike the previous case, isn't it? Now the oxygenated blood flows to the cardiovisceral vessel, and from there to the brachiovisceral vessel, and from there back to the brachiocardiac vessel. So the whole route is reversed. Okay, thus the course of main blood current gets reversed every time. So this is always like um, blood flows from heart to brachiocardiac vessel at one time, and alternating to it, the heart pumps blood to cardiovisceral vessel. So there is always a reversal. Consequently, what happens is the vessels which in the first case carried deoxygenated blood from the heart, in the second case it will carry oxygenated blood to the heart. So that this is actually the same flow chart, but I have included a little more detail. Okay, so that it is easier for you to understand, right? But initially, I didn't show you this slide so that you don't feel it more complicated. I hope now it is okay, right? So you can see the different organs, different what do you call parts which are getting innervated by different kinds of different branches from the different main vessels. Okay, so this is just for you to understand. So before we conclude the circulation or the circulatory system in the case of Ascidians, I'll just remind you that unless you learn the flow chart properly, unless you understand the different vessels which arises from the heart and different branches from each of the main vessel like ventral aorta and dorsal aorta, you won't be it won't make it thorough. Okay, so you please draw it and learn it, and like study it now itself. Don't keep it for another time. Okay. So thank you. And in the next presentation, we will be looking into the excretory system and the nervous system of the Ascidia. Okay. Looking forward.